Do you ever wonder why psychiatrists say they have no cure for bipolar disorder? Well, I started wondering that myself when I was hospitalized and restrained a little bit like this guy 10 years ago. And the funny thing was, I was able to cure myself, and the reason was I didn't listen to anything the psychiatrist said. And in fact, I think that my experience of what would normally be called bipolar mania was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And what I learned from reading great psychologists like Carl Jung and radical psychiatrists like R.D. Laing is that there's no chemical imbalance involved in bipolar mania. That's not it at all. What happens is, for most people, bipolar mania starts with a concentrated period of radical change in their lives, which causes a collapse of their ego. Now, what's an ego? That's not that easy to explain, because in our society we say, oh, somebody's got a big ego, and we talk about it like that, but that's not really it. The ego is our false self. It's the sense of who we think we are, but we're really not. The best analogy I can come up with is, imagine you're a baby chicken, and you're inside an egg, but you think that you are the eggshell. The eggshell is you, and in a sense, that's what our ego is. Our ego is a shell around us that we use to protect ourselves, but at the same time, it limits us, and it limits our full potential. Eventually, we need to break out of that ego in order to thrive. So just to give you an example of what an ego is like an egg. And here we have Bill Shatner's false self, his egg, his ego. And a big part of Bill Shatner's ego, he's 19 years old, and he considers himself his dad's son. He's very close to his father, and him and his dad have a really great relationship, and he respects him, and that's a big part of who he thinks he is. I am my dad's son. He's also Sue's boyfriend. Sue is his longtime girlfriend. They've been dating for a couple of years, and he's proud of that relationship as well. Another relationship that's very close to him is his relationship with his city, New York. He considers himself a New Yorker, and he's a Yankee fan, and he really wouldn't live anywhere else if you asked him at this point. And being a New Yorker, for him, life is all about success. You know, if you're not a winner, then you're a loser. Get out of the way. And so Bill is very competitive, and as part of that competition, he considers himself to be a very good student. He studies very hard, he takes his studies very seriously, and as part of being a good student, he is working very hard to get into a good university. He's also a Christian. His family's Christian. He was raised reading the Bible. He goes to church on Sundays, and the values and the beliefs of Christianity are very close to him. So all of these different aspects of Bill's life, his religion, his relationships, his attitudes towards life, his desire to get into university, his city, all of these things compose who he thinks he really is on a subconscious level. And they represent parts of the ego that he shows to the world, in a sense his false self. And he works very hard to maintain this image of himself, and worries about things like, what if I don't get into university? What if I lose people that are close to me? These sort of things. The ego causes a lot of fear. But then something happens. His father dies. And with that, it's a very traumatic experience for him. He really doesn't know what to do with himself, and he suffers greatly with this death. He suffers so much that when it comes time to study for his university exams, he really doesn't study that much, and he fails his exams. And you know what? He finds maybe he doesn't care that much. He doesn't care about university the way he used to. Maybe university was something his father wanted for him more than he did. But along with that, you know, what happens to him as the great student? You know, he starts to wonder, like, am I a failure? What's wrong with me? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't know why I'm pushing myself so hard, and what is this all about when you can die? You know, this kind of thing. So then he questions, you know, these things and goes into a depression. And Sue, who maybe she was a little bit shallow, even though she was pretty, but she leaves him in his depression because she just can't stand to be around this guy when she's 19 years old. She wants to party all the time, right? So Sue leaves him. And he really starts to question his values now. And he starts to say to himself, you know what? Ever since my dad died, I want a simpler life. Life is not about success and hard charging for me. Life is about simplicity. That's what I want my life to be about. And with that, he starts to look in different directions. And one of the directions he looks is Arizona. he goes to the University of Arizona. That he decides that's going to be his career choice, or his schooling choice, and he packs up and he just leaves all his problems behind and he moves to Arizona. And then once he gets there, what happens to his Christianity? Well, it kind of goes up in the air because he meets all these New Age people, all these people down in Sedona and places like that, and they've just got this other way of looking at the world, and it's very mystical, and they do a lot of tarot card reading and massage, and he doesn't believe that, but he doesn't really know what to believe of his Christianity anymore, and he starts to feel a little bit strange. He starts to get a little bit lost. So many changes have happened to him so fast, and so much of his old identity of who he thought he was has just disappeared overnight, and he is really starting to feel physically a little bit strange, a little loose, like your feet are not quite touching the ground. Then, in the middle of all this change, Bill might find himself at a party, and he's had a few drinks, maybe a little marijuana, and boom, he has this total ego collapse. Everything he thought about himself before seems to have disappeared. He doesn't know who he is anymore. All he knows is he's got this huge surge of energy pulsating through his body from a source that he's never been to before. And this energy is literally taking him on a journey. He is going to a place that he's never visited. He is taking a journey into his own soul. That's where this is all going. You feel your soul and all of your feelings and emotions come up so strongly in this manic process that you literally don't know what to do with yourself, and you're really confused, and you start to ask yourself questions. What is reality? What is real? Am I dreaming? Am I dead? Am I alive? Are you part of me? Am I part of you? I don't know. Who am I? Becomes a big question once your brain is functioning enough to ask the questions, because let me tell you, it is a mad and mystic experience, but it is not one to be suppressed. And the reason that this period of apparent insanity needs to be cultivated and manifest is because for the first time in your life, your soul is really communicating to you in a very powerful way. It has total control because your ego is not there anymore. And the truth of the matter is, your soul was never very happy living up to all of those false expectations, all of those false images that you had in your head, because in truth, you didn't put those images there. Your parents put them there, your religion put them there, television put them there, your culture. Your soul has a plan all of its own for you. And now, for the first time in your life, you're really listening.